We're ready when you're ready.
Okay. I'll call this session of the DeKalb County Council Wednesday, March 12th, 2025 in session. We'll begin with an opening prayer by Rick Collins.
Let's pray together. Father God, we thank you for this day that you have given to us to be here and to sit as representatives of DeKalb County and about the business of DeKalb County. I pray today for our citizens that you would protect them, look over them as they're about their homes and their families and their businesses. We pray for the family of Mike Watson today, that you would continue to bring peace and comfort to them in the loss of our friend Mike Watson. I pray today that our wisdom would take control of this meeting, that we would bring wisdom to our every decision that we make. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen. At this time, I'd like to ask the council for a moment of silence in remembrance of Commissioner Mike Watson. Okay, thank you. Bill, you have something you would like to say before we get started here with the meeting?
In most of my county meetings I go to here and other places, they all stand up and says the Pledge of Allegiance. I think we should get back to doing it in this room. We don't have to go out there before every one of our meetings. I think it's the proper thing to do. And I'd hope everyone agrees with me, because we don't need to go out and do it out in the, whatever you call it, rotunda. Thank you, lady. And I think before every meeting, after the prayer, we should say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Do we have consensus from the council members?
Absolutely.
Would you please stand for the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Bill. That was a good remembrance there.
Thanks, Frederick. Thanks, Frederick. You're welcome.
Before we go on any farther about Commissioner Watson's celebration of life, I didn't look at today's paper yet. And I don't know if
It was in today, yeah.
was it in this morning?
Yeah.
Okay. It is Sunday from 1 to 4 out of Bruce Plaza.
It is not formal, just kind of come and go.
It's come and go. There'll
Okay.
be something by Reverend Craig at 2 o'clock. But other than that, it's just come and go.
Okay, thanks, Rick. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at the minutes? Are there any additions or corrections? If not, do we have a motion for acceptance? Okay, we have a motion by Amy Prosser.
I second.
And a second by Rick Collins to approve the minutes from the February 12th, 2025 meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Okay, so Amy's going to abstain.
Which, by the way, you guys ought to reshuffle some of those. Amy Prosser sitting where Amy. I'm not sure what plate's in front of you, Amy.
Hey, I'm still Rick Collins as of now.
And there's one that's over there that's
Okay, all I have to do is hit that and I'll bring up what we're talking about, right?
Dave, is this just a typo in our agenda? We have the December 11th, 2024 minutes to be approved. Is that just a typo?
Probably.
Okay. Just want to make sure we didn't need to go back and approve those.
No, you would have done those last,
Thank you, Susan.
in January.
We're good on that, then, Susan. Okay, moving on to additionals here. We have two. This is pretty light, this meeting here. These both come from the clerk in the 4D Incentive Fund. The first one is for $10,000. It is from Fund number 8899, account number 22310. The account title is Repair and Maintenance Supplies. The amount requested is $10,000. Was this included in the annual budget request? The answer is no. And the reason it was not included, we were not sure we could use this money for remodeling. How will this appropriation be used? It'll be used for plaster, paint, and carpet. Specific cost of the item is $8,000. How was this cost determined? It was an estimate from the contractors, an estimate of percent from 4D. What is that? Something federal auditor?
I'm sorry.
Pardon? So, if you want to, no, that's fine. I consult my guess. And federal auditor, is this a recurring expense? No. Will other expenditures be necessary? The answer is no. Was it discussed with the liaison? Yes, and that liaison was Amy Dembski. And let's take a look at the second one here because we may be able to consolidate these. This also comes from the clerk office, fund number 8899. The account is 44410. The account title is furniture and fixtures. The amount requested was $10,000. Was this included in the annual budget? The answer is no. We were not sure we could use this money for remodeling. How will this appropriation be used? It'll be used for furniture and fixtures. The specific cost of the items was $8,000. How was this cost determined? It was estimates from contractors, an estimate of percent from 4D consultants and federal auditor. Is this a recurring expense? The answer is no. Will other expenditures be necessary? The answer is no. Was it discussed with the liaison? Yes, and that was Amy Dembski. Anything to add? Oh. Okay. Okay. Any questions from the council? First of all, do we have consensus to take these and do them with one motion? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, we have two additionals. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Rick Collins. Do we have a second? Second by Amy Dembski for approval. We'll call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Okay, moving on. That was the only additionals that we had. We do have two different transfers. The first comes from developmental services, from operating supplies to advertising in the amount of $250. It is Fund 1001. It is from the operating supplies, account number 1001.22130.000.0013 to advertising. The account number is 1001.33340.000.0013 in the amount of $250. Why is this transfer needed? Facebook page has been created for the DeKalb 2040 comprehensive plan. I would like to boost the events and posts for the page to help viewership of the page and events. A boost is a paid or sponsored post that is geared to the residents of DeKalb County. Will additional appropriation be requested due to this transfer? The answer is no. Was it discussed with the liaison? The answer is yes. And the liaison's name is Bill Van Wy. Is there any further discussion amongst the council? Hearing none, we'll call for the question. All those in favor?
We gotta get a motion.
You need a motion.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We need a motion first. Do we have a motion first?
I move that we approve this.
Okay, we have a motion
I'll
by,
second.
and second by, motion by Bill Van Wy, and second by, is it you? Bob Kraft. Okay, thank you. And any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the $250 transfer signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. The next one is from the CUME-CAP Development Fund. It is for courthouse repairs to repair and maintenance for $30,000. And this is from the clerk's office. Fund name is CUME-CAP, fund number 1138. The amount to be transferred is $30,000. It is from account number 31046 to number 46 courthouse repair, or from 46, number 46 courthouse repairs to account 22310, and the title is repair and maintenance supplies. Will additional appropriation be requested due to this transfer? The answer is no. Was it discussed with the liaison? And that is yes, and that was Amy Dembski. Do we have a motion to approve $30,000?
I had a question of what kind of repairs and stuff they're doing there in the clerk's office. It sounds like they're doing a pretty big.
They're doing some major renovations to the entire clerk's office.
They're going to make the central middle part of it like their filing area, I think I had heard. And then small claims is going to be Dana's office. Right now, there's a bunch of them in there while they're moving things around. You probably should just go take a look. It's be easier than trying to explain it. But yeah, it was, I mean, they talked to commissioners, I think Holly talked to commissioners maybe 2 years in a row, and had told council, I think twice. And last year was when, or last year for this year was when it was put in the budget.
They've got quite a bit accomplished. It's renovations that needed to be done, that kind of been neglected over the last 20 years.
And Larry and Evan have done a lot, like pulling it all out and.
Does anybody know if this 50, this 30 plus the 210s covers, is the total going to be about 50,000 then, or is it more than that?
I think we budgeted either 250,000 or 320. We budgeted a lot because she had, for one, she didn't really know because she couldn't get prices until she knew whether you guys would do it or not. But no, I have not, I'm not sure.
So we don't know if this will be the last.
Well, they are, okay, so it's already okay, this money here in CUME-CAP, that was already approved and appropriated. This is transferring it into an account so that it's appropriate to pay the invoice. The additional was because of that repairs, then the consultant said that a certain percent of it could be paid from the incentive fund money. So the money that will be paid from the incentive fund will not be duplicated in the money that's paid from CUME-CAP. It's kind of takes it away.
So the overall expense was taking, we approved that in the budgeting time for CUME-CAP?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
And that 4D incentive money that saves us from spending CUME-CAP.
Right.
And there's limits to what they can spend that money on anyway. This happens to be one that covers it.
Clerk gets 40 money, prosecutor gets 40 money, and the county gets 40 money. And most of it, the prosecutor has to tell you whether you can use it or not. The clerk has a little bit of leeway. Our part of it, there's really not much we can use, but we do use it to pay our 40 consultant for the county, which is Dossett Consulting.
Thank you for the explanation.
Do we have a motion to approve? Okay, we have a motion by Amy Dembski
second.
and a second by Rick Ring. Any further discussion from the council? Okay, we'll call for the question. All those in favor of the transfer signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, you have also in your packet a list of non-approval transfers. Does anybody have any questions pertaining to any of those? Okay, we'll move on then. Next up, Randy Fox on the airport.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Morning, Randy.
The airport is moving forward with our runway extension project. This year, they're putting basically 2,000 feet of new taxiway, which allows, because right now, there's 5,000 feet of taxiway and 7,000 feet of runway. So they're going to improve the connections between the taxiway, make the taxiway go all the way in. There'll be a run-up pad. When pilots take off, one of the last things we do is run the motor up to a medium speed, and it has 2 ignition systems. And so we cut one out, see what the engine does, cut the other one out, see what the engine does, make sure it's not going to fail while we're trying to take off. So the engine redundancy is there, and all that is usually done at the far end of the runway when you're going to take off. So all that will be done, new lighting and new signage. The old lighting was high voltage, incandescent. We're going to a much lower voltage LED, which of course will last, we hope, forever, but it won't. But it'll last a lot longer. And so that project is supposed to be beginning actually this week. The automatic weather observation system, the AWOS, is the new tower and AWOS system are being installed. We're still waiting on some parts. We are moving forward with the bidding process on the T-hangers for 3. It's interesting, one of the lenders we approached said, now you're going to take the whole time to pay this off, right? Because you have a habit of paying things off early, which I'm assuming affects their profit for the loan. And I agree, in my years on the board, we've never gone any complete length on any loan that's ever been taken out. There's Russ and the board have always been creative about getting things paid and getting it off the, paying as little interest as possible. The avgas system for the people to come in and fill themselves up has been having some problems. Sweet Aviation was all over these guys about getting that fixed. And I was out of town for the last 12 days, so I'm kind of behind possibly on some of this, but there was an issue during our last icing event where an aircraft wanted to use the runway. We had the runway closed because of icing. There's been some research done. We've got the ability to put sand down. We've got the ability to scrape and broom the runway. It's a huge broom that angles. It gets pulled behind one of the old county highway trucks, and it would clean snow off. But ice, Russ said when they put the blade down, all it did was make the ice shinier. It didn't actually remove it. So we did some, there was some evaluation done that we're looking at $5,000 to $7,000 for one light application of de-icing for the runway, which would be the entire 7,000 feet. And that's on light icing, which would normally, if it iced up today and then the sun came out this morning, the ice would be gone by probably this time, or mostly gone by this time. If it's a heavy icing event, then we're looking at possibly $30,000 to de-ice the runway. So we're investigating the equipment to put that down, whether to buy it on a regular basis and stockpile it for waiting. There's even some discussion, and Sweet Aviation is a little concerned, but about de-icing aircraft. If we get to a point where we've got enough aircraft coming in and out that they want all-weather operation, if you go to a commercial airport and there's icing going on, they run you to a special pad, they spray your airplane down, and you've got 20 minutes to get off the ground before the ice redevelops. The concern, as much as anything, is the liability. You know, should we even be operating the airport when it's icing like that, since we're a general aviation airport, not commercial? So it's an ongoing, we don't expect icing now for the next 7 or 8 months. So this discussion, I think, is going to go on for a long time about how to handle the icing issue. And see what the costs actually are. And we're still working with marketing on the name, new logos and that, and we'll be back with that when we have a better feel for it. And with that, I'll take, I guess one more. Our operations were down for last month because of the icing events, and the light aircraft don't fly a lot in those kind of weather events and times, so we expect the operations to jump up now for the balance of the year. And with that, I'll take any questions.
What happens with icing with,
Well, a Samaritan, they actually come out on their own pad out in front, and they lift off from there. They don't have to use the runway. Often, if you're out there, you'll see them, they may track down the runway to be in normal operation like any other aircraft, but they don't have to. They can just lift off from their apron right in front of their hangar.
is it in a building that it's not
Yeah,
icing on the actual helicopter, or?
right. We've leased them. We got a 50-year lease with Samaritan. I don't remember how far we are into it now, but they have actually 2 aircraft in the hangar, and then they have a bay where they do their maintenance, and they also have an area where the crew can stay and spend the night if necessary, or the day, whatever's going on. So the icing we're talking about is icing on the aircraft themselves, if we want to de-ice it, or icing on the runway so that the airplanes don't have any control when they land, and we certainly don't want to damage, multi-million-dollar aircraft if at all possible. When our runway gets iced up, there's a notice to airmen, a NOTAM as the generic or the vernacular, goes out that says our runway is closed for a certain amount of time due to ice or whatever when we go under construction. Again, probably next summer. There'll be a NOTAM that says the airport's closed for whatever long it takes to mill that runway and reinstall all the surface. So occasionally we're closed for those kind of reasons, but the big one we're discussing right now is icing on the runway. And long-term, down the road, we hope, would be de-icing aircraft themselves.
Randy, if you do get into the de-icing of aircraft, is there a charge to the aircraft end for that, or is that there?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and again, that would pretty much go through Suite as the fixed base operator. The board oversees their activities, monitors what they're doing, and making sure they're in compliance, which Suite has been a great choice for us. But the management from Suite, when we mentioned de-icing aircraft, put his head down, and it's a big expense, getting the boom trucks that can do that, getting all the chemicals, and then the liability for, doing that, and then some aircraft takes off, and you find out that they miss half of one wing, which makes one wing fly and one wing not, so the airplane just kind of turns upside down. And
You say it's good for about 20 minutes when the plane is de-iced?
on the commercial airplanes, I know it's good for about 20 minutes. Once they get off the de-icing pad, they got 20 minutes to be off the ground, or they have to do the de-icing again.
Now, if you get into that, is that something you'd have to build a special drain and a containment area for that, or don't know?
I don't know the discussions that far down the road yet. I just know that the de-icing as a concept appears to be expensive, and a fair amount of our liability involved if we end up doing that somewhere down the road. Right now, it's not a consideration.
Then does each airplane that gets if they request to get de-iced, do they pay a charge, or
Yes.
they pay that fee for those chemicals and stuff that are being
Yes.
applied to their plane?
Yes, they would be charged for that, because that, you buy a couple $1,000s worth of chemicals and wash them down the drain.
Yeah.
You can't do that for free for very long and still be a viable entity.
All right, now, is the airport authority, would they be the ones that buy the equipment and buy the supplies, and then Sweet Aviation makes the charge? How does that get,
Again,
how's that
that's
whole thing?
a
rotate
discussion to
through?
be had down the road.
Okay,
This is, everything we talked about other than the runway de-icing, at this point is all conceptual. So we're not embarking on that project yet.
Randy, in some of my past business jet travels, I know we had an option to take it in a hangar. Does that happen at DeKalb Airport with the terminal hangar?
Yes,
So
yeah.
if there is a situation where the jet needs de-ice, they can move it into the
Well,
inside and for the amount of time it takes to,
There are three, I don't have the numbers right in front of me. Scotty from Sweet Aviation gives it to us every month. But we've got like 3 jets that are hangared in the main hangar, along with about 9 or 10 general aviation aircraft that people pay the hangar fee and they're in. And when someone wants to use a jet that's in the hangar, the guys get the tugs out, move a couple airplanes around, pull the jet out, and it's ready to go. It doesn't
so
need to be
for
de-iced.
those, it's jets, I understand that,
Right.
but, the guy that's flying in from Nebraska to do business here in town, is there that option for them to bring it inside
I
to de-ice
would-
it while or if we know an ice storm is coming?
Yeah, I would assume that, Sweet would make every option available for something like that, but I can't swear to that right now.
Right.
I don't know if we've ever had that issue happen. Our big concern is, the aircraft that are on our airport, how can we service them and make sure
Right.
the facility's available? The airplanes like I used to fly, the little Cessna 140s, 150s, we have no de-icing capability on those aircraft. So when there's an icing event, you just don't go. And that was kind of what happened. Middle of the night, ice on the runway. One of the larger aircraft wanted to leave, and the runway was closed. Even the pilot wouldn't go. Even if the aircraft owner wanted to be gone, the pilot said it's not safe. So multiple layers of safety, and we're just trying to continue that into the future.
Anybody else have any questions for Randy? Thanks,
Next,
Randy.
next
Good
meeting
report.
scheduled for the 21st,
Next meeting is scheduled for this Friday.
or this Friday, 14th.
Yeah, we had an issue with getting a quorum together because many members were going to be gone a week from Friday, so it's been advertised. So the meeting is scheduled for this Friday, 1 o'clock at the airport in the conference room, and of course, everyone's invited if you'd like to attend.
Any other questions? Thanks, Randy.
Okay?
Randy?
Appreciate it. Hey, Michelle, next order of business here.
Morning.
Morning.
So I am here this morning just to kind of give some information about our plans for our adult grant budget this year. It is due April 11th, so it's coming up pretty quickly. And I sent a summary as well as kind of 2 versions of a budget. The first one being where we ask for additional funding from DOC. My understanding, last time I checked, as it stands now, the Department of Correction is getting more money, but the Community Corrections Division is getting the exact same amount of money as they've had for several years. So unless that changes in the next, I don't know, what do we have, a couple weeks left for that to possibly change?
The 1st of April, they'll find out how much.
So a couple weeks, yeah. So unless that changes, they'll have the same amount of money that they're allowed to dole out. So the only way we would get any increased funding is if there was another program that closed, didn't require all their funding, was not meeting standards, something like that. So I've made a budget requesting additional money, but then I made another one assuming that we get the same amount that we've gotten in the past. So in the summary, I did try to let you guys know that we didn't identify any major cost increases that we think will be coming in 2026. So far, that's good news. Hopefully that doesn't change. We were able to find some cost savings. So we found some ways to change our menu and buy some different products for food services for the residential program. So that's going to save some money. And then our maintenance department has been really helpful in helping us work through plumbing issues, and that really large recirculation pump that we have that we're no longer running other than to keep it functional. And so we've been able to save some money on utilities as well. So looking at all that, if we receive the same amount of funding, we're looking at Well, overall, we're just looking at a budget increase of 1.26%, because of the savings we've been able to find, and then we factor in like wage increases for the employees and things like that. So we're really trying to do as much as we can to keep our costs down. And then if we don't receive any additional grant funding, we had, and this is completely a guess right now, obviously, that there'd be projected increase for the county's contribution, but we have no idea what the medical insurance is, so we really can't answer that question at this point in time. It's part of our struggle to create a budget this early to provide to the DOC, is that there's so many things we don't know yet. But even with that being said, because of the cost savings we found, we were able to move that money into our wage increases. And so last year we had in the budget that the county was going to give wage supplements $37,000, and we're able to reduce that down to $18,000, even if we get the same grant funding. So we're trying to be good stewards, move money around, and do what we can. And I'm really just here to provide information on that. I go to the commissioners on Monday to get them to sign the letter of support, and then we do our letter of support from the advisory board on April 4th. And then it's due by the 11th, so.
I think each year, though, we at least have the council motion that they approve you to submit once you get commissioner approval and stuff.
You know, I thought that, and then last year I thought they decided to wait until budget time, so that's, you know, whatever you guys want to do.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me either, but I would think it would be better to do it now because I don't care. I don't care how you do it.
Michelle, now that you guys are operating at a higher capacity, more people in the community corrections, are you able to, does that generate user fees, and what are you able to use some of those user fees to help pay for?
Yeah, let me see if I put that in the summary. We do generate quite a bit of our income from those user fees.
That really helps then.
It does, and so, what'd you say? Oh gosh, I don't know that mine are in the same order.
If it's in there,
Let me
don't
look.
worry about it, just.
No, that's fine. So we have budgeted in the, take this paper clip off.
Says 25% of the income,
Yes, so
residential work facility.
in the budget, assuming that we don't get any more grant funding, about 26% of what we are going to have budgeted is going to be from project income.
Then you can use that for wages, anything you want to use for an operations, that's great.
Most things, there's a list of things, like we can't use it to do any construction, we can't use it to buy vehicles,
Right.
weapons, ammo. So there is a list of restrictions, but it's a fairly short list, but we can use it for wages, which you can see we do have $353,950 going towards wages. And then we can use it for operational supplies, paying our leasing fees for our electronic monitoring equipment, our alcohol equipment, things like that.
A question just kind of threw me. I was looking through this. Adult resident faculty administration, $200 fee transfer in if someone is transferred in from another county. Are we transferring people in here with another county?
Yes, sometimes we do. So, and that can happen in a couple different ways. So usually it's because that person's already a resident of DeKalb, but they were arrested in another county. And so for us to supervise properly, it's easier for us to do it here than that other county to attempt to, you know, come out and do home visits or have the person report to their office. So we transfer out if we have people that live in other counties, and they transfer into us if it's a DeKalb resident.
And I don't know, I'm looking at this page whether this is home monitor or is this, is there a administrative fee once they go out to the correction center, or is this for monitoring at home?
Both. We have fees for both. Yeah.
What is the average number of residents in the facility?
Last year, our average was 28. Well, we have 52, but we work in ways similar to the jail, so we would never want to have 52 because, for example, if the problem-solving court decided that they wanted to sanction somebody, we need to have the ability to take that person. So it's kind of, the jail has an 80% rule, so we would function the same way.
there.
I do not have that. I don't think that's something that we've ever attempted to run.
What would a person there, what are their fees? What do they pay?
So there's a $25 a day minimum, so anyone that's staying in residential pays $25 a day. Part of that is for their electronic monitoring, and part of it is for everything else, electricity, food. And then we do have also an overage fee. So we collect their pay stubs, and we charge them to 25% of their income, or the $25, whichever is higher.
Okay.
And these people that's out there, community correction, they have a monitor on them when they go to work and stuff
Correct.
and everything. And I was looking through this and I don't remember, how many people other than that you have home style monitor, that they have monitors where they stay at home? Do you know how many people are?
Yeah, we usually average around 35 that are on home detention monitoring.
I'd just like to add, this
That
is
does
a,
not include pretrial, I should say that. We also sometimes will have folks that we're supervising on pretrial. Most of those do not have electronic monitors on, but if the court orders it, they could be required to wear an electronic monitor.
The fact that we have community corrections has done a very good job of keeping those that have been convicted out of the jail and into community corrections. And you watch the jail overcrowding report we get every week, the number of convicted people in the jail is down, and the number of people that have not yet been to court is way up, and those people are not eligible to go to community corrections. They can only take the ones that have already been convicted. But they have helped us keep that number down. We're now running somewhere around 90, we're still 10 more than what we say we should have, but they're keeping that number down. Without them, that number would all be in the jail. So.
And the other thing that I always like to point out when I have the opportunity is that for us at Community Corrections, we have a lot of value added too. So we're not just, we are keeping people out of the jail, but now we're not only doing that, but we're also working with them to help them do rehabilitation, right? So they can go to treatment classes. We offer, at this point, we are at 5 in-house classes, right? And they range from anything from domestic violence classes to, we're not supposed to call it codependency, but that really is what it is, right? So how do you set boundaries and have healthy relationships, to anger management, to criminal thinking classes that we're offering in-house, as well as whatever we can send them to out in the community. And then just working with them on other goals. So do they need a GED? Do they need better employment? What do they owe on their child support, and how do we make sure they're paying that as well in a weekly budget? So all those things that we have the opportunity to work with them on, that the jail really doesn't have the ability to do.
On that fee that you said the minimum fee was $25, and then, but it's 25% if they're working, right? How long has it been 25? Is that something the state set? Is that something we can raise? Over the last 5 years, there's been a lot of fees that have gone up on a lot of items that people purchase. So I just wonder that maybe that doesn't come into play. Most of them on a work release they're paying 25% of their paycheck anyway, and not $25. But just a question about that $25 fee. Is that
That fee is set by the advisory board. So that was a decision that was made when the facility opened. I will say that it is on the high end if you look at neighboring communities and even communities throughout the state. So some are charging only a flat fee, others are charging 20%, whereas ours is already 25. But that is something that can be looked at by the advisory board if they decided that they thought it needed to be raised.
Yeah, I guess I'm talking about the $25 minimum, but I guess they wouldn't have much money if they're not working. So the ones that are working, you're collecting a lot more than $25. So.
Well, we have rules about working. If you're not working, you enter our disciplinary process and you start to receive sanctions. And if you receive sanctions, we do graduated sanctions. So we start at a certain level, and if that continues, so if you receive a sanction for not working and then you continue to not work, or this happens, you get a job and you keep it for a week and then you quit it, you didn't like how they talk to you, and then you get another job, you would enter our disciplinary process, and so there would be consequences for not maintaining your employment.
Oh, that's very good.
You, for mental illness, do you have a class or people come out there and talk to them on mental illness and everything?
So for mental illness, what we normally do is refer to one of the community mental health, like Northeastern Center or Bowen Center. And they usually do individual sessions. They could do medication management with one of the providers that they have out there. Or sometimes, depending on their situation, they could be placed in a group. And a lot of times that's co-occurring. So you're going to see mental health along with substance abuse. So a lot of times that gets, the providers will basically treat that as co-occurring. And so they have that as a subject in their substance abuse group.
And the other thing, when you put this budget together, do you make agreements like on their, I'm looking here at your urine oral fluid test and your cannabis, I can't say it, test, are these all guaranteed for the year of your budget, or do you try to get them as a guaranteed price?
Yes, we have contracts with the lab, the provider for that. They do attempt to increase it on us. One of the things that we did with the unified department is that we combined that contract with probation because economies of scale, right? The more tests that we do, the cheaper per test they usually give it to us. They did try to raise it on us last year, and Chief Lapham called and let them know that would not be happening. I don't know how many years he can do that and hold them off, but it worked last year. So in 2026, it may go up only because we're obviously so early in 25 that they haven't had that conversation with us yet.
Michelle, I'd just like to add, this is a very comprehensive, thorough report. And I think unless you read it and fully digest it, people don't realize how many steps and programs and intervention strategies you have in place out there to make these residents successful. It's good, very good. Thank you.
And thanks for being willing to come in and share and let us ask all these questions too, because it really does enlighten us to what a good program we have there. So
I do have one more question. Michelle, if a person is in community corrections, is the county responsible for their medical bills?
No. At community corrections, they're all, whether they're in the residential program or they're on home detention or pretrial, they're all responsible for their own medical care, as well as their medicines. We do have a contract with Genoa, which provides our medications in daily packets, so it's easier for our staff to make sure they're taking the correct amount of their medications, but they're also considered self-administration of their medications. We're simply there to make sure they don't take more than they're supposed to.
And if these same individuals were in the jail, the county is responsible for their health care expenses. So again, another benefit to the county by having community corrections.
Yeah, I have to add on to him, this is a very thorough, I started reading it last night and thought, well, it'll be 3 or 4 pages. Kept flipping up my computer and said, I'm gonna get through this last. I appreciate this. There's some things that brought up that I didn't realize what happens. Thank you very much.
Michelle, real quick question. On the 25%, is that 25% of their gross, 25% of their net?
So there's a formula, and I think in the annual report, if you had a copy of that, we attached the fee schedule that explains it.
Okay.
Because there are some things that we do take out of it, and one of the things that's been questioned lately that I think is going to come up in our next advisory board is their child support.
Correct.
So should their child support be removed before we determine the 25%?
That was really my question. Their garnishments, their child support.
Yes.
those
So
things.
right now, child support is not in the formula, but it's part of a conversation we've been having that possibly it should be. Because there are other things that we are taking out of their kind of their retirement and some other things like that, if they do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Before Michelle leaves, should we have a motion to approve or support her budget?
I was going to bring that up, and I think that if we do this now, that's one less thing you have to worry about towards budget time. So do we have a motion to approve the budget report as submitted? We have a motion by Amy Dembski. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Rick Ring. Any further discussion or questions to Michelle?
So in our eligibility requirements, we have limits that we let the courts know that they need to stay in those limits for us. And so they have to have at least 10 actual days to serve. in order to come and serve it with us, either in residential or in home detention, and they can't have more than 4 actual years to serve, which is a really large range, and so it leaves them with a lot of options. So when I ran the numbers for the annual report, what I found was that the average stay was about 86 to 90 days, depending on which program we were talking about. And so we have people that are serving significantly less than that. We get some that, instead of going to jail, the court would like to place them on home detention for 14 days. So for us, that's real short. We're really just hooking them up, explaining the schedule to them, getting them started in treatment. And then a lot of times those cases get passed off to probation when they're done with their home detention time. Usually if they're coming into the residential program, they're staying for a little bit longer. And one of the things we have in the residential program is if someone has one of the longer sentences and they work their way through our phases, we have a 6-phase program. They work their way through by complying with all the rules, not having disciplinary, completing goals that they made with their probation officer, and they make it through all 6 phases. They have the ability to then move from the residential program on to home detention. And so that's really an incentive for them, and it's another way to help us moving into reintegrating them into the community to make sure they're going to be successful when they're done. So there's a lot of variation just in what the court decides to do, and then also, whether they have probation afterwards, they don't. Sometimes they have parole after they're done with us. We do take some participants out of the Department of Corrections in a program they call Community Transition. And so they spend a period of time with us doing electronic monitoring, and then they move back to the parole officer for the rest of the time that they need to supervise them, and we're kind of out of it at that point. So.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor for approval. I'll call for the question. All those in favor of approving Michelle's budget signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
I did provide the annual report, which I think some people are already referencing, as well as a disciplinary report and a grievance report. Do any have questions on any of those other than what was already talked about? Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Let's do a quick motion acknowledging receipt of those, of her annual report.
Okay. Do we have, Amy, you make the motion, and a second by Rick Collins to
Acknowledging receipt.
Yeah, this is just acknowledging receipt. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion is carried. Thank you.
Well, this meeting went a lot better than last time.
Don't jinx us.
Okay, next up, commissioners. Commissioner Dooley. Good morning.
Morning. I would like to go over a few things with you guys, if you don't mind. I'm going to start with the space study. So on Monday, we, as the commissioners, decided that we would like to have a space study done. I think we have 8 facilities, 8 buildings that we're taking care of, and I feel like over the years, it's kind of been just mosh posh, fixed here, fixed there, and we don't have an overall strategy or plan of what we're kind of doing. The space study would help with functional relationship mapping, work pattern analysis, department proximity planning, space utilization, analyzation, adjustment planning, just kind of give us an overall feeling of which departments should be with who should be where. Can we shrink down from 8 buildings to maybe 6 or 7 buildings? I know it got kind of brought up with the development services, needs a new building. It's pretty rough shape out there. If we had an overall plan, is it worth building? Is it worth fixing up? Is it worth building somewhere else and combining multiple departments into it? So today I'm kind of asking you guys if that's the will of the council would be to fund that study if we decided to go with it.
I know this is something that's been brought up several years. I know Mike Watson had pushed for something like this years ago, and I think it's a great idea to take a look at. Do you have actual quotes yet?
Not yet. I just wanted to see if you guys would be willing to fund it. Then we'll get quotes and come back to you guys on it. I'm not going to give you like a blank check or anything, but just to see if you guys are like, yeah, we like this idea, go ahead and go forward with it.
So what you need from the council is just a go-ahead to seek quotes at this point. No commitment or
No
anything
commitment,
at
no.
this
Just
point.
that you guys would be willing to entertain that idea and then bring back some quotes to you guys and then.
Yeah.
Could this be
from
done
there,
on a
on the
consensus, or
finances.
do we need a vote? We're just pursuing quotes.
Do we have anything to approve other than the fact that we're giving them direction that they can go ahead? I suppose maybe we could give them a limit, get quotes, and we would approve up to a certain amount. I have no idea
I
what
have no
a
idea
study
what it
like
would be.
this would
Yeah,
cost, so I don't even know if we,
I think it's just,
I would
I think a consensus
do
to just move forward is, it's,
correct, because
We're not
there's no
approving
way to
anything, we're
know even how to give a limit, because we have no clue anything.
absolutely.
Do we have consensus from the council to allow the commissioners to seek quotes?
Absolutely. I think it's a great idea.
Absolutely.
Okay, I just didn't want to start all that, down that path, and you guys are like, nope, we don't want to do it, and then it's just a waste of time
I
for kind
I
of
think to
everybody.
get an overall plan of everything and all the offices and all the buildings and all the properties we have and where we can put things is much, much better than I mean, I know I've heard Rick call for that and Mike called for that a few times in the past to, let's get a whole plan together, and then we can work that plan. It may be a 5 or 10 year plan to get there, because there might be
Yeah,
a
it
big
might be a
plan.
while,
I
but at
mean,
least have an overall
yeah,
strategy
yeah.
going forward. Okay, so then that piggies into the jail. Kind of why I wanted a study plan too was that I'd like to move the corner out to the jail. But on the jail, Susan gave me some information of how many more years we have on it, how much more money do we need to put into that fund to fully fund it? Because I would like to, and I think it's the will of the council, the commissioners, is to, it's going to take 6 months to a year to do the whole bidding process and everything else. So the moment we kind of know when that last date's going to be, we can start moving on the jail. I think everybody's concerned about the jail. Everybody wants to make sure the jail is getting taken care of pretty quickly. I don't know if you guys are going to put extra funds into Susan, do you have a fund that's just for the jail? No? Okay.
It's not specifically labeled jail. It's all the correctional facility, but like correctional facility lit is not labeled community corrections.
Okay.
It's just that piece of the tax.
And we had been
Then-
putting money in the rainy day fund.
Yeah, then there's money in rainy day, and commissioners have lighted,
Yeah.
it's different, but there are funds being put back, but there's not something that is just specifically called the jail. And I asked prior about, there used to be something called a CUME jail fund, and that's not really a,
And we had discussed that at one time, I know, at the
Well,
end of the year.
Jeff Peters gave us the advice the best place to put it was in rainy day.
Yeah.
Because if another emergency came up.
Right.
And it was in a CUME jail fund, we couldn't
use
use it for that
Right.
emergency.
Yeah.
So it gives us more flexibility as a council if it's in the rainy day fund. So that's why it's there.
Okay, and Susan told me 12/31 of '28 is when the last payment will be due for the.
correct. And I handed this out to everybody as well as emailed it to everybody.
So with
I
the
can
rainy
see
day fund that Rick was talking about that you guys have saved, is that going to shave off any of those years on it, or should we use that date as the?
No, all 3 years left of payments on that bond will come from the lit, which I've already figured in all of those payments in this amount. So once everything is said and done, bond is done, and assuming there is no increase in our lit revenue, which there's always an increase in our lit revenue. So assuming there's none, then we would be looking at the 16 million value there that would be remaining in that fund. There will be more than that because we've got 9 years of increase of revenue that will come in there as well.
And we can't pay that bond off early because we refinanced it once. That's why we got to pay that right to the end.
And the concern has got to be what is going on in the legislature right now. There's the parts of House Bill 1401, which did not make it from the House to the Senate, may be amended into SB 1 before the end of this session. And what that would do is transfer a lot of the, what's currently property tax over to an income tax. There's some major changes being considered there with income tax. Whether or not the jail or the community corrections lit would survive in its current form is questionable. I mean, for us, it would have to. It would have to, because we've already got it existing, and it would have it's set to pay these bonds off. What would happen after that 3 years, I don't know. But a number of, the public safety thing would go away, the EMS income tax would be done in a different fashion. Cities would be allowed to have their own local option income tax. County would have a separate one, and they would no longer have to share with the cities. So there are just a number of different irons in the fire. Things are in the air. Nobody knows where this is going. What the SB1 does currently with property tax is not reduce what we are already getting, but it will reduce the amount of increase that we would get over the next 3 years if it goes in. So again, there are too many irons in the fire to know exactly what direction we should go. But we do need to continue to save money, and we need to continue to plan for the jail, because in my idea, and this is just strictly my idea, but it'll be a council decision, is we have as much cash to put down on this jail and not to have to finance as possible. So that's where we're at.
And we can also on this 0.13 raise it up to 0.20, can't we? That's the limit on that.
Well, that's the limits right now. We've got room to move on the current, but one of the things that would go away if this bill goes through as it currently goes through is right now we have a 0.5% property tax relief in local option income tax. If this bill is passed in its current form, that 0.5 goes away. It's gone. So that's another thing to consider.
I just wanted to kind of get an idea of, we talked about you getting more from the lid and you getting stuff you guys were saving, that if you guys were going to try to bump it down and cut off a few years or not. So it sounds like you guys are not going to, which is perfectly acceptable. So that way we can work with that date of the 12/31/28 to be in the last date. That way we kind of plan the construction of, start the bidding process with that date in mind, and just to have some kind of idea of what we should be doing is kind of why I wanted to bring that up to you guys today. So, and then the last, I would like to talk about the Sunny Meadows Committee. So we put together a committee to kind of help with Sunny Meadows. It's been a big issue out there for many, many years, it seems like. And we put a committee together. Lita is on it. Myself's going to be on. I was privileged from the commissioners, and I would like to have a council person to be on that committee too. I'd like to try to get 5 to 7 people on it. Other ones would be leaders of the community to help decide the future and what's going forward with Sunny Meadows. Because there's a lot of issues, there's just a lot of things going on out there that we need other leaders to come involved and see. Rick can contest that we're one of just 1 or 2 that still operate the way we operate now. The insurance is a big issue right now, the liability out there has been so bad that they took it off the insurance overall liability for the county and have its own separate policy at $32,000. That insurance trustees is working their butt off right now trying to find coverage again for us next year. They went through almost all the major carriers last year, was denied, and had 22 specialty carriers deny them last year because of just the way nobody runs it the way we run it out there anymore. And so what does that look like? Do we need to change it? How is it? Everything's on the table out there, and I want to put a committee together with leaders of the community and a council person so that way we all can be involved and figure out what we need to do to help these residents out there, and there's 17 right now.
Bill had mentioned something to me about it, and as the liaison for the county to Sunny Meadows currently, I'd be happy to serve on the committee, but.
That's fine. I figured it would be
If you're
you.
asking, but I guess you guys have to appoint somebody, but Bill had mentioned something to me.
We figured it would be you, but I wanted to have a vote from the committee and see if anybody else wanted to be involved, so.
I don't have to, but I'm more than willing, and I want to, so.
Can we do that on consensus? Do we have consensus to appoint Bob Kraft to the Sunny Meadows Committee?
And then after the meeting, we'll discuss and figure out the time.
And for public knowledge, I just want to make it clear that Lita is serving in her community public leadership, not as an elected official. So that
Leah's been very involved with.
So there's
in her
no
personal life,
question.
Involved with the Sunny Meadows and stuff out there. So that's why she's been asked to be on it, so. Any questions for me while I'm here? Okay, thank you for the time.
Calendar quickly, what's your target on that as far as kind of coming back with recommendations? Do you have anything on the timeline there, or are you still kind of?
Well, we kind of have a hard timeline right now with having no insurance of May 10th. So I want to try to meet as soon as possible, start working on a plan with that in mind, that if we can't get insurance, what does that look like? And if we do, then we have some more time to breathe and see what we're doing from there. So that's why I'll talk to Bob after the meeting and kind of sit down. And then a few other people have reached out to me to want to be involved, but I don't want to make it too big, because you get a bigger committee, then things slow down. So but I want to get enough people involved and see if we can get something together possibly next week to start having those discussions.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, next, developmental services job description.
Okay, wait. Bill, did you want to say anything about, okay, about that development service building?
Actually, it's just tabled for now until we get this study completed,
Yeah,
because that would be a part of it, whether we do that or not, or go the other direction. And, it just kind of, you bring up a suggestion, a plan, and sometimes it spurs momentum into another direction and maybe a better direction. So that was kind of part of the deal there. But yeah, for now, it's just on hold. We got some numbers we can work with on that, which gives us some guidelines as far as whether that's worth doing, or is there something bigger in the picture on down the road maybe.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay, Bob?
Yeah, I think we're, at this point, and Dottie's here, but I think we just have job description acceptance. It's not changing them out of their category, right? On this first one?
it is accepting the job description, with the category change, but
Oh,
none
there
of
is a
that.
category change in this one. There was another one we didn't.
None of it takes place until January 25.
Right, right.
So or 26, the approval will be when it comes budget time, then the values will come at that new category.
Right, so this is just to accept a new job description that the committee's already received. And WIS has already been sent to WIS.
Correct.
And WIS approved that it will be a category change, but we're not implementing that category change in '25.
Correct.
It'll be with the budget for next year.
Correct. And it is not adding a person. There are 2 GIS employees, I don't know what they're called. And they basically do the same thing. So instead of having 2 different job descriptions, it's 1 job description for 2 people. So it's not getting rid of anybody or adding anybody.
Any questions?
I don't have any questions.
I was going to say, I was going to make a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a
The job
motion to,
description.
yeah, I'll make a motion to approve.
And I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion amongst the council?
We're just accepting the job description at this point.
That's correct. This is just on the acceptance. Okay, hearing none, we'll call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Susan, the next item on the CCD rate establishment.
Yeah. Okay, so this is March. January, I had briefly explained about the cumulative capital development rate, that it's not at the maximum amount. It used to go down with trending, no longer does, but we need to reestablish so that we're at the highest rate that we can. So I'm wanting to advertise this for a public hearing next meeting, but I kind of wanted your guys', I don't know, approval or to know that you guys even want to do this, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Question I had was, a number of years ago, at the request of the commissioners, we increased and designated a certain percentage of the cum cap fund to be directed towards bridges, because the bridge fund was not generating a maximum amount of money needed to take care of the 140 bridges or whatever it is in the county. That's not changed in making this request, as a
No.
percentage, that amount will go towards, because the bridge fund is, has a cap to it. Cume cap does not have a maximum to it. And we've got these bridges, many of the bridges, they're the box-style bridges that had a 50-year life, and they were a lot of them done back in the 80s. The 50 years are starting to expire. They're going to need to be replaced, and I think maintaining those bridges in the county is extremely important, especially to the agricultural community. If they can't get across a bridge with their equipment, that is going to add a great expense to those farmers and those people trying to do work in the county. So I think it's important that we keep that at a level.
So in 2016, the council had reestablished the rate then because it was all the way down to .0191, and you reestablished it to the max of the .333. And at that time, because of the increase, it was agreed that 42% of that would go to the bridges. So reestablishing the rate that I'm requesting is making it go from .0307 up to the .0333. So it actually will help both, because we'll have a little bit of an increase, and whatever amount of money we get at settlement, 42% of that amount goes to the bridges. So if we get more money, then more money is going to go to the bridges. Plus, we're going to be able to have more in the regular cume cap for all of our capital needs that may come before you.
And can you say those numbers again, please?
Okay, which, are you talking
Sorry,
current or
the rates.
prior?
Yeah, from now, what is it now?
Currently, it is at .0307, and the max is .0333. In January, this is what the page looked like that I provided for you guys, and it has all of it on there.
Any other questions?
I guess I do have a question. As far as the legislature goes and all the stuff that they're working on, is there stuff that they're working on to help the counties with some of this infrastructure? They're talking about cutting, our property taxes, but where's the funds going to come from if we need more additional for roads, for the infrastructure like our bridges?
Well,
like, what does that look like? Are they talking about giving the counties additional money so that we don't have to raise the rates locally? What does that look like?
No. The answer to that is no.
No, they're not talking about it.
They are looking, the road funding is totally separate
Right.
from everything. They are looking at other additions there.
I guess my question is really, is the state looking to cut their funding as well, or not their funding, but where they're
Oh,
spending?
they are doing.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's where I get a lot of questions. They want to cut
But they're
county, are they
also,
cutting state?
they're also concerned about where things are going from the federal government, because a very large percentage of the state's funding comes from the federal government.
Correct.
And so that is going to cause a number of decreases. And, one of the biggest irons in the fire right now is Medicaid and Medicaid funding. But road funding is done separately. They're looking at several different options for road funding, and it's right now they're developing 2 different levels for community crossings. We would qualify for the initial, in that proposal, we would qualify for the initial amount of community crossings money. But if you want to go to the next level of community crossings money, you would have to have a wheel tax. And it doesn't say that you have to have the wheel tax at its maximum, but you would have to at least have the wheel tax. We don't have that. It's failed several times here, and I don't know how much desire there would be to institute a wheel tax in the future. But it may be one of the few sources we have of getting additional money. And we're caught in and I can see both sides of this, but we're caught in the constant circle of, we want you to raise taxes, we don't want to. The county, the locals are saying that to the state, and the state is saying that to the locals. The state's given us plenty of options to raise money and raise additional money, and if we choose not to use it, then okay, then we choose not to use it.
I think the citizens are saying, stop raising our taxes.
Well, and I think so too, but, and that's one of the reasons that the governor's proposal for property tax relief is in. But we also have to realize that Indiana has some of the lowest property taxes in the nation already. And those people that have very high property taxes have no state income tax and really have no, we are the highest in sales tax, or among the highest in sales tax. So realistically, we are probably in the best position of any of the states as to where we're at in relationship to any one of those taxes. But anyway, all of this is in motion. A lot will be decided today as far as what might be presented. The other is they're not going to know where they're at fiscally until the first week in April. That's when the predictions for the next 2 years' financial outlook comes in. If it looks good, and we've had 3 months now of state income being higher than the original projections, if that falls flat in April, and then everything is probably out the window. It's just done. We're not going to go anywhere with it. But
Hey, I want to just temporarily put a halt to this conversation. We need a vote on the tax rate, CCD tax rate. Do we have a motion for that?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, then this is for the... For next meeting, okay.
This isn't to actually raise the tax. This is just
No,
to
it's
have
just to
the
move
actual
it
public hearing.
ahead to the public hearing in April. Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second. Any further discussion from the council? We'll call for the question. All those in favor of moving this to the April meeting for the public hearing piece on a CCD rate, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Do we have anything else amongst the council to come before the council?
Yes.
Bill?
I went to three of the meetings for the new comprehensive plan for the county, and I got called out the other day by 2 farmers at the meeting because we have not had the wheel tax, and they're very upset over the road. I think that the committee, I know Rick's on it, but I don't know who the third person's on it. I'll shut that sucker up.
Some farmer calling you.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. I think we should at least get together and put a plan together, whether we approve it or not. But I think we should get together and get something so that we can look at it by, I think the deadline's June, before we have to do something.
It has to, because it has to go, if we were to pass anything, it would have to go to the DLGFs for approval that everything was done correctly. Having a deadline of June is probably good, because I think that deadline, if I remember right, was September, maybe even late August. Yeah, so, yeah, the sooner we look at it, the better, yeah.
Well, I'd like to get together before I get busy, sometime by the end of the month, if that's all right, if we can get the information together. And I don't know who the third one was on that committee. It was listed as our assignment, but I know there was a third person. So,
Is this something we can put together to discuss and look at the next meeting?
dang it.
Okay, so Susan will put that on the agenda. Anything else come before the council? Rick?
Lynn Reinhardt, do you have Bill Van Wy's personal number? We'll get that for you before this meeting ends. All right. I make the motion, we adjourn.
Second. Meeting is adjourned, thank you.